filter in as the program continues. But my name is Matthew Morano. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission at Providence College, and I'll let my colleague introduce himself as well.
Yeah, hi everybody. Michael Splan. I'm a senior admission counselor here at Providence, and looking forward to talking through some ways to make our application stand out.
Excellent. So Mike and I are both Providence College alums. So in the interest of full disclosure, we're pretty biased when it comes to Providence College. But we wanted to host tonight's webinar to kind of go over some ways in which you can make your application stand out. That part is probably obvious by this point. But I think that we have a pretty useful presentation for you in order to help guide you through the application process. We hope to have this entire presentation wrapped up in about 25 to 30 minutes, just so we can set the expectation for you tonight. And we're going to cover some things both inside the application and kind of outside the application as we go through the materials that we have planned for tonight. So feel free to use the Q&A. It's down at the bottom. You are most likely Zoom veterans by this point, but if you need some help, the Q&A is down at the bottom, as well as the chat option. I think it's probably more helpful to put your questions in the Q&A. You can ask questions anonymously if you want, and Michael and I will be happy to answer those. Also, if you I thought there was closed captioning, but I don't see it, so apologies for that. But we're going to do our best to make tonight, there it is, cool, accessible and equitable for everyone attending. So thanks again for joining us, and we will get started. So Mike, if you want to start the slides, we will be on our way.
Perfect. So the first tip we have out of the 5 is to connect with your admission counselor. This one, if you've ever attended an info session at Providence, you may have heard us talk about this already, but this is super important. So our job titles are admission counselors. You'll see counselor in our title. It's not just an arbitrary title, right? We are here to truly counsel and to help you all through this process. Your admission counselor is the person who, well, first and foremost, will be mostly traveling to your territory. So you might see your admission counselor at your high school or at a college fair in your area. This is the person who is first and foremost your main contact at Providence College through this admission process. So if you don't know who your counselor is already, that is completely okay. You can go on our website, and if you go to providence.edu and you go to contact, and you can type in the name of your high school, and the information of your admission counselor will come up for you, and it'll have your phone number and email. So any questions that you have throughout this entire process, we're here to answer those for you. There's no such thing as a silly question. Believe me, we've heard it all, and we know that for some of you, this is your first time going through the college process as a family. And so there will definitely be some questions that you might have. In addition to that, it's nice to make contact with your counselor if Providence is high up on your list, just to let us know that. While we don't necessarily track demonstrated interest in terms of assigning points to visits or anything like that, to let us know that we are your top choice can be helpful in the process, just so we have some context. Obviously, we'd love to be able to meet all of you out on the road, but we're not always able to do that. And so it's nice to hear from you all, and especially if Providence is your top choice, to really just reach out and let us know about that. That's something that we'd like to know going forward through your application. So if you have any questions, or if you want to just introduce yourself, make that personal connection with your admission counselor, please always feel free to reach out. It is nice to, when reading through applications, to see a name that looks familiar, a name that we've been in contact with that student before. So please take the time to reach out to us.
Excellent. Okay, so definitely good advice. Tip number 2 that we wanted to talk about is displaying a fit to your intended major. Now, for some of you, you know exactly what you want to major in, and you've known for a while, maybe, and you've been able to kind of tailor your high school years so that you're doing meaningful things that relate to what you want to study. And this is helpful for us because at the end of the day, Michael and I are trying to discern the best academic and personal fits to Providence College. And how we end up doing this is by getting a good read of your application and really picturing you fitting in seamlessly on Providence College's campus and in the community. And that is done by looking at your activities and what you do outside the classroom. It's also done by looking at your transcript and what kind of classes you've taken. So, for example, if you are applying to Providence as a science major, maybe you're applying as a chem major, then I think it makes sense to, have really specific choices about your science curriculum. Maybe you take AP Chem, or maybe you have a different like chem related class in your high school. And that's just on your transcript, right? So like those are the academic pieces that we can see, and we can see a fit to a specific major. But also, as the slide points out, like maybe you are in chemistry club, right? Or maybe you are doing a shadowing or internship experience that relates to chemistry or whatever your major is. It doesn't have to be chem. But I think those are things that make it easier for Michael and I to say, oh, this person is a natural fit to their major and their program, and they're going to make a really easy transition to campus once they arrive at Providence College. And, at the same time, we understand that there are many of you who have no idea what you want to do, and that's totally fine. And you're going to apply undecided or undeclared, or you might choose a major, but you're not really like super married to that, or you're sure that you're going to stick with that when you arrive to campus. I think that's okay too. That's totally fine. I think in those instances, it might help you to kind of describe a little bit about your academic interests and say that, you're a 17 or 18-year-old student and you have plenty of time to figure out all that stuff, which is totally true. So you're not being penalized if you don't display some sort of specific fit to your major or academic program. But I think if you don't have one, it's a good opportunity for you in the application to tell us why that is. And there are many perfectly reasonable explanations for that. And we don't expect everyone to know exactly what they want to do and what they want to major in. I mean, when I meet students on the road, I tell them, I still don't know what I want to do. This job's working out okay so far. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that. But yeah, I think displaying some sort of like intentionality about what you've chosen as an academic major, I think that goes over pretty well with us when we review applications.
Absolutely. That is a great tip. Um, the next thing is supplemental information. And so there is a part of the Common App that lets you talk about supplemental info. And we also have optional supplemental essays that you can choose from. Now, we do disclose that these are optional, these supplemental essays. You do not have to complete these. However, best advice, not only for your application to Providence College, but to applications wherever you're sending them to any school. Anytime a college gives you the opportunity to write more and to demonstrate your writing skills, to tell the college more about yourself and who you are and some of your personal characteristics and things that are important to you, what have your life experiences been like, what has led you to Providence College, why do you want to study whatever you'd like to study at Providence College, all of these things. Whenever a college gives you the opportunity to write more and to give them more content, it is pretty much always in your interest to do so. And so we offer 2 supplemental essay prompts. For students, you just have to choose one of those. You don't have to write both supplemental essays. Just choose one prompt and write just a brief essay. The essay itself shouldn't take you all that long to write. It's not anything lengthy. But again, it gives us more content. It tells us more about you. Again, circling back to what I said earlier, we don't always get the opportunity to meet you when we're out on the road traveling to high schools. So the 8 to 15 minutes that we spend reading your application is really all we get sometimes in terms of letting us know who you are. And so to write a supplemental essay is a great way to kind of boost your application and to give us more to go off of. There have been very few times, if any, since I've been doing this job that I've seen a supplemental essay hurt a student's application. right? It's very rare that writing a supplemental essay is going to affect your application negatively. However, I'm sure Matthew can attest to this. We have seen plenty of supplemental essays that have given us something new to look at, have given us new information, new things that help us to get to know you better, um, and give us a reason to give your application perhaps a second look, or even just boost it even higher than we already thought of it. And so it is not something that you should look at as a waste of your time. It is something that for us we think is very helpful. And sometimes in the regular Common App essay that you write and that you send to other schools, a lot of times those essays, as they should be, are a little bit more objective. They're usually a story, perhaps from your life, something that's a little bit more objective. However, in the supplemental essays, you have the opportunity to make those Providence College specific. And so, since we are the only school that would be receiving that supplemental essay that you write, you can write about what it is about Providence that you think aligns really well with yourself, why you see yourself as a good fit to Providence College, what experiences you've had that you would look to bring to our campus. And so you can really tailor that supplemental essay specifically to us and to Providence. And that goes a long way. Along with what I said before about reaching out to your counselor to maybe let us know that we're your top choice, or that we're high up on your list, or that we are a school that you are highly and strongly considering for these reasons, XYZ, you can actually incorporate some of those elements into your supplemental essay. It is the topics, the prompts are pretty open-ended and allow you the opportunity to talk about Providence College specifically if you choose to. Or perhaps not. Perhaps you want to write the supplemental essay not necessarily specific to PC, but you look at it as an opportunity to tell us something new that we won't see in any other part of your application. So there are a lot of different avenues you can take with that supplemental essay. But regardless of what you do, really the most important thing is that you actually do it. And so that we see that you took the extra step to do that supplemental essay. It does go a long way. The essay is optional, so do with that what you will. You do not have to complete the supplemental essay. However, if we're talking about tips to make your application stand out amongst the pack, certainly completing that supplemental essay and giving us as much content as we can in that short period of time that we have to read your application, those things go a long way. So that is certainly a piece of advice that we would extend to you, not just for Providence College, but for any college you apply to. Take advantage of any opportunity they give you to give them more content.
Yeah, definitely. Like as Mike said, I mean, the Common App is great in that it's opened up a ton of access to students to be able to apply to a lot of different places, but there's nothing about the Common App that is school specific to that in particular institution. And as Mike iterated, that the supplemental essay is a really good chance for you to display some knowledge about the campus. And again, that makes it easier for us to picture you fitting in at Providence College too. So another piece that we wanted to talk about was the additional information section. And again, this isn't something that is required of students. It's also the Common App also has a section to explain like some like how you handled COVID basically, and like what that year was like, or sometimes more than a year in your household. So this is kind of blending both of those together. And these are, I guess, not as important as the supplemental essay. I think if we were to choose this or the supplemental essay, we would always choose that students fill out the supplemental essay instead of the additional information section. But I think this is a really good chance for you to tell a school something about you that didn't necessarily make its way into your application that you think we should know about you. And in my experience, a lot of times this is a lot more informal writing than your essay or your supplemental essay. And I feel like it just comes out easier. Like you spend so much time curating an essay and making sure that every word is perfect and every punctuation mark is correct and editing it and showing it to different people. But I think that when I read an additional info section, it comes across way more naturally for some reason. I don't know what that is, and maybe it's different for other counselors, but I know that in my experience, reading these is kind of like a breath of fresh air sometimes because it feels like more of a conversation than like a formal writing piece. So that is helpful because again, that kind of helps us picture your voice and who you are as a person. But as you can see from the slide, I think it's helpful here to kind of explain something that might be an extenuating circumstance in your high school, right? Like you had a teacher that got sick and you had a substitute for a really crucial time in your academic year, and that may have really negatively affected a big test that had a big impact on your grade or something like that. And you know, as it says, give context to your high school years. Like, tell us a little bit of like why your high school career went the way it did. So hopefully that's fairly straightforward. I mean, we're not trying to trick you with any of this stuff, but as Michael said, like any additional context that you can give us about your high school experience and your high school career helps us picture you as successful students that transition to our campus. And the other thing too is that we want to hear, if you do write something here, we want you to write something that's different from what you've already given us, right? So you might in your essay talk about a particular experience that you had in high school or an achievement that you've done in high school. And I think we want something more than that, right? Like you should have fleshed that out in your essay and done a good job of explaining that and why it's important and why it means so much to you. This is something else, right? This gives us an additional layer of who you are as a person or who you are as a student and allows us to do a good job picturing you on campus. I know I sound like a broken record, but like that's really what this process boils down to is that we're trying to picture you fitting in well inside the classroom and outside the classroom.
Yeah, and you know, just to expand upon something that Matthew alluded to in the beginning of that, this section here is not always necessary. You know, whereas the supplemental essay we would objectively recommend that every student do the supplemental essay. Sometimes there isn't any additional information that you have to provide, so you don't necessarily have to write something here just to write it. This is given to you as something that you can utilize if you have some of those extenuating circumstances or some of those things you just want to let us know that you couldn't find anywhere else in the application to put it in. So this is helpful for that. And then another thing that really helps your application stand out is to make the most of the activities list. You know, I think that we sometimes I know I speak for Matt. I know I speak for Matthew, and I think I speak for the rest of our office in general. That it's sometimes very frustrating for us to see an underutilized activities list when we start to see in other places in the application that a student actually does quite a bit outside of the classroom. So there will be times when we'll be reading through an application and there maybe are only one or two activities listed. You know, it doesn't really tell us a whole lot about what you do outside the classroom. And then we get to your letters of recommendation and we start to hear from your teachers and from your counselor that, you know, you're the captain of 3 sports teams and you are the founder of a big service club and service project that's taking place on campus. And we say, wow, you know, it would have been great to hear about this from the student themselves in the activity section. So I think that there's perhaps a mindset of, you know, I don't know if this is really important to them. I don't know if they're going to care a lot about this. And the truth of the matter is anything that you do outside of the classroom that takes up your time, if it's important to you, if it's important enough that you spend an hour or two a week doing it, then it's going to be important to us, and we want to see that. So, obviously, humility is a quality that we value in our community here at Providence, but there is no need to be humble on the activities list of the Common App. There's no need to be humble here. This is where you get the chance to brag about yourself. In fact, my high school counselor way back in the day used to call this part the brag sheet, where you're able to quite literally brag about yourself. So, anything that you do outside the classroom, athletics, clubs and organizations on campus, service projects that you do, part-time jobs, Maybe it's something as simple as your parents work late on weeknights, and so you have to babysit your younger siblings. Anything at all that takes up your time outside of the classroom. If it's important to you and you spend time doing it, then it's going to be important for us, and we want to see that come through. Another tip here on the brag sheet is on the activities list. It is to make sure that you put yourself in our shoes for just a moment, and you think through how these are going to look to the counselor reading your application. So yes, Matthew and I travel to different high schools. The high schools that we cover that are part of our territory, we know them pretty well, but we don't know them as well as you know them. So there will be times when a student might put something on the application such as, well, I am the president of the CAA club. It's like, that is wonderful. We're so happy for you. But what is that, right? What is that club? What is that organization? What does the club do? I think sometimes you can get in the mindset as you're filling this out of, well, I'm the president of this club. And since you've been on this club for 4 years, let's say, you know very well what it is. And there's sort of an unconscious, I guess, implication that we might understand what it means, and we don't always understand. So obviously, you don't have to tell us what it means to be a captain of the varsity basketball team. We can put that together. But for some of those more, unique organizations that are unique to your school, it's helpful for you to actually define what the clubs and organizations do, so that we have that. So anything you do outside the classroom, athletics, clubs, service organizations, jobs, tell us about them. If you hold a leadership role in any of these things, if you are the president or the co-founder or the treasurer of one of these clubs, if you're a shift supervisor at work, right? Anything like this, make sure you take the time to brag about yourself and fully define everything that you do. You don't necessarily need to fill in all 10 boxes, but they are there for you. So feel free to utilize them to the fullest extent. If you have 10 things to list, then by all means list all 10. If not, then really focus in on the things that you do and tell us and describe those things in as much detail as possible.
Great. So before we turn it over to questions, I just wanted to kind of give you all some context about like what type of applicant pool we're dealing with, right? We've talked about like ways to stand out, but I think it's also helpful for you to know like just how big the pool is, right? Like how are you're trying to stand out amongst a group of however many students. So last year, it feels a little weird for me to say last year because the class like just arrived to campus. So I'll say in the most recent admission cycle, we got 12,470 applications, and our acceptance rate was 47% at Providence College, which makes us, I would call us like fairly selective. It's definitely not super selective. But yeah, I mean, like 47% is less than half of you that would be attending this webinar theoretically would gain an invite into Providence College. So we have a ton of students that apply to Providence College that look pretty similar if we're just talking about academic numbers, right? If we just looked at a GPA and a student's curriculum, then there'd be so many people that looked exactly the same when we go to review files. And how we end up selecting some of these students and not others is by, I mean, all the steps that we've talked about tonight. If you do a good job with all the things that we've gone over, I think that is kind of the ideal way to approach the review, at least at Providence. Other schools might do it a little bit differently, but I think, that we want to feel that you've done a really good job expressing a sense of self and who you are, both as a person and as a student, because that gives us a lot of confidence about your overall fit to Providence College. So that's some helpful info. I mean, who knows what the applicant pool is going to look like this year? We think it might get over 13,000, which means Mike and I aren't going to go outside much in November when we have early action and early decision applications. But that's the state of college admission at Providence College these days. So I think that's helpful to know and a good note to end on. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those live. Or you can also email us. Our contact info is pretty easy to find if you go to the admission webpage at Providence College, and we'll be happy to help you out. I mean, as Mike said, really the first point, the first step was being in touch with your admission counselor and letting them know what your interest level is in Providence. So yeah, feel free to do that. You can actually go to the admission webpage, and in the contact part of the admission page, you can type in your high school, and your admission counselor's name and contact info will pop up on the screen. So yeah, it's pretty easy to get in touch with us all throughout the fall, even though we're traveling a lot. But our job is to help you navigate this process. And our job is to help you present a really good application for yourself. All right, I see a couple
Great.
in the Q&A. So Mike, I'll read them and I'll let you kind of take the stab at the first question, and
Okay.
we'll go to that. So the first question was, if I have a resume of my high school activities, should I include that as part of my application?
Yeah, so you certainly can. What we would recommend would be to maximize those 10 boxes that you have in the activities, and try to fit all of your activities into those 10 boxes if possible. That would be the most helpful for us. You can, if you absolutely have used all 10 of those boxes and there is still more that you do that you think is important that you want to let us know about, you certainly can submit a resume, and that will be included in the Common App that we will be able to see when we read through your application. But I think in general, most students are able to fit their activities within those 10 boxes. And if possible, I would advise you to try to keep it to those 10.
Good answer. That's exactly what I would have said. Nicely done. So
Thank you.
another question that we got is about the nursing program. And that's something that we didn't really touch. So I'm happy to go over that in a little bit more detail. The question was, if you essentially, can you come into Providence College and then change your major or transfer into nursing? And so nursing is a little bit unique in that we are not allowing students to transfer into nursing or to switch into nursing once they've enrolled at Providence College. So if you are interested in nursing, then you have to apply as a nursing major and indicate that in the common application. And you are admitted to the nursing program and also to Providence College. So like we don't, for example, we don't extend an offer of admission to someone that applied as a nursing major and say you're admitted to Providence, but just not as a nursing major, right? So like you apply as a nursing major and your decision is final based off of that major that you do. So nursing's the only one that operates like that. Health science is still a little bit strict, but we're also allowing students to switch into health science. So nursing is this is year 2 for nursing for us. We just had our first class of nursing students arrive to campus last week. So it's still fairly new for Michael and I to go and review nursing applications. I think earlier when I talked about a student's fit to a particular major, that's what really kind of helped the student out when they applied as a nursing major. So like, you do a good job in your application of telling us why you want to major in nursing and like why you've chosen that. And I think that helps us in our review because that's the only program where the seats are limited, right? So the goal for this year is to enroll 75 students in our nursing major. We will probably get around 800 to 1,000 applications just for nursing. We will likely admit, 3 to 4 times as many as we're looking for because we understand that those students are going to have options and they might not choose Providence College at the end of the day, but that's still really competitive. I mentioned earlier how the overall acceptance rate at Providence in the most recent cycle was 47%. For our nursing program, it was like 32%. So decidedly lower than the overall acceptance rate. And it will probably be lower for this year because it's been out for a year and we're likely to get more applications for it. So I know that's the very long answer to your question, but hopefully that gives you some context and some good information about nursing.
Mhm.
Mike, the next
Um,
question. Sorry. Did you have anything to
yep.
add there too?
No, I was going to answer the next question.
Okay, sweet, cool.
Yeah. So somebody had asked, what makes you steer away from an application? I think the biggest thing, and perhaps the only thing that I can think of, are incompletion things that are incomplete would make us steer away from an application. So, if for example, a student submitted an application and they did not send us any letters of recommendation, or they sent us an essay that only had 2 lines and perhaps you didn't complete the rest of the essay or something. Sort of just those incomplete things would make us steer away, or you had an activities list that was completely blank. Um, you know, we do see that sometimes, and we understand that sometimes that is unfortunately uh, something that was a mistake through the Common App and not something that was intentional on the student's part. But unfortunately, with all the applications that we have to read, it's hard for us to uh, kind of give credit to students who don't complete a whole section of the Common App and leave something blank, or leave something incomplete. And so those are really the only things that I can think of that make me steer away completely from an application. I don't know, Matt, can you think of anything else?
Yeah, I mean that's basically what I was gonna say. Like I've been doing this for a while now. Like this is year 16 in the office for me. So I can pretty easily spot an application where the effort was minimal on the student's part. And that kind of turns me off because I know like we're Mike and I are spending a lot of time going through applications and reading those. And it's also just a bad look when your classmates and peers like and it's really evident that they've spent a lot of time in their application, right? Like they might not even be necessarily the best fit for Providence, but I can respect that they've done a lot of or they put in a lot of effort into their application. So I think the ones where we can kind of tell that it's been kind of lackluster on the effort side of things, those are things that I would say never really tend to fare all that well in the admission process at Providence. Okay, we got a couple more questions. This is good. We like seeing these roll in. Someone said, where in my application can I list my club's Instagram page? It showcases a lot of things that aren't represented in my resume, but I feel are very important. I think this is like a really good example of the additional info section, right? Like you can say, you can explain like, I wanted to share my club's Instagram page because I feel like it's important to me, and just drop the link right in the additional info section. So that's probably the best way to do that.
Perfect. And then we had a couple questions here that were both regarding legacy. So
Mhm.
things like if you have a parent who went to PC, or if you have a sibling who went to PC or currently goes to PC, um, does it better your chances of being accepted? So the short answer is sometimes. Um, and so we are able to see if you are a legacy to Providence College. As of right now, that's something that we're able to see in the application. And so sometimes in those cases, if you have some kind of legacy, um, we will in the reading process. I mean, I would say just in the same way that a really good essay would stand out to us, a really good letter of recommendation would stand out to us, a really solid supplemental essay would stand out to us. These aren't things that are necessarily, just because of that, you are automatically accepted to Providence College. The same way with legacy. It's not something where you're automatically accepted to Providence College because of your legacy. It's just another part of the application that is something that we take notice of. So in the same way as anything else, I would look at having legacy as in the same way as an essay that stood out to us in a special way, or a letter of rec that stood out in a special way. That same kind of thing. It's not a it's not a guarantee of admission. It's just another thing that makes us give it a second look and We give it a thumbs up and a nod in the process. Anything
And
to
then
add to that, Matt?
no, so someone else just chimed in the chat that does aunt, uncle, or cousin qualify as legacy? And for Providence College, we define legacy as someone who has a sibling that currently attends or that graduated, or a parent or guardian. So extended family doesn't really count as legacy. We might see that in an application, but the only kind of way that a legacy might sometimes help, like Mike suggested, is if it's an immediate family member, sibling, or parent or guardian. One of the questions that I think we've talked about as an office is what happens when an applicant uses AI to write essays? This is a good one. The short answer is we don't really have a good way of knowing if you've used AI. I mean, I would encourage you not to do it because, in my experience, the essays that I have seen that are written by AI, like the ones that we do as like test cases, um, just aren't as good, right? Like they're capable of filling it out, right? Like it does the job, but it doesn't do a good job of adding depth to the student, right? And like maybe that will change. I'm not really sure. I feel like a lot of us in the office are kind of split amongst like, is AI a good tool? Does it make it more equitable for students, or is it something that people are going to be taking and using to take advantage of? We don't have a definitive answer on that yet, but I think we would encourage you to use your own writing style for the essay, because I mean, basically, why we want that is because if you're relying on AI to use your essay or to write something in your application, and you get to campus and you're not really a strong writer, you're only setting yourself up for failure once you get to our campus, right? Because you're not going to be able to use AI for everything. You're going to have to use your own writing style and your writing skills for things. And if you have just become dependent on AI or a chatbot, then it's going to really hurt you in the long run. So yeah, I would stay away from AI when you're writing your essays and filling out your application.
Yeah, exactly. And the word that I think is sometimes lost in the Common App is the personal essay. The essay is personal. And if there's one thing AI can't do is be personal, right? AI doesn't know you as well as you know you. So the best essays, I think I speak for Matt here, but I know I at least speak for myself. The best essays that I read are ones where I get to the end and I say, wow, okay, great. I now learned something new about this student that I wouldn't have known having not read this essay. And it's not clear to me, at least in our research that we've done as an office, that AI is able to capture that in the same way as you. So good answer there, Matt. There's another question here. Is there a significant emphasis placed on positive grade trend when evaluating an application? How does it impact the admission process? So I think what you're getting at here is if a student has progressively received better grades throughout their years, so perhaps maybe had a rocky start to freshman year and then a better sophomore year and then really knocked out of the park junior year and is on a good trend for senior year. So yes, those things, those are conversations that we do have as an office. And academic progression is something that we do look for and something that we do give credit to. So in the same way, like I said before, that any of these kind of nuanced conversations are happening, in our admission committee and throughout our admission process, right? These are all things that we take note of. So while yes, your objective GPA number is important and your objective strength of curriculum score is important to us, the nuance of strong grade trends from freshman year throughout senior year, those are conversations that we are having, and those do help.
All right, we have 3 questions left, so I think I can answer them kind of rapid fire because we said that we would only take 25 to 30 minutes, and now it's 7:40, so we want to be cognizant of your time, but these questions have been great. The first one was, does the business school work the same way as nursing in regards to transferring in and out? At the moment, no. So nursing or the business school is some of our most popular majors. Finance is actually the most popular major on campus right now. but you still have the freedom to move in and out of any of the four business majors. So there's marketing, management, finance, and accounting, and that gives you the freedom to move back and forth. So that's one. The second one was, does having a recommendation letter from someone associated with PC help, like an alumni? And I think the answer there is if they know you well, right? Like it's not going to help you if this person has no idea who you are, right? Like an alumni letter is cool, but we can tell pretty quickly if this person just doesn't know anything about you. So I think the best letters are always going to come from people that know you the best, that can speak to the type of person you are or the type of student that you are. Um, and then there are two more, so I'll wrap those up quick. Is there any one section of a resume that you find more important to work on? Not really. Nope. I think like we just want to know how you spend your time outside the classroom. So as long as you're doing an accurate job of that, you're good to go. So nicely done. And then lastly, it will end on a good one. If the school I go to does not offer many APs, is this something I should explain in the additional info section or something admission officers will already know? It's likely something that we will already know because, again, we spend a lot of time in the fall traveling to our territories and different high schools across the country. So we will probably know that if we don't travel to your high school, every application is accompanied by a high school profile sheet, which tells us explicitly what's offered at your high school and what type of classes are available to different students. So, yeah, I mean, that part is likely going to be included in your application, but if you feel like you definitely want to make us aware of that, yeah, by all means. And that's another good example of the additional info section, right? Like you wanted to take AP Spanish and AP US History, but they're offered at the exact same time, and you go to a smaller school and you couldn't have taken both of them. Like that's a good thing to let us know if you are wondering about curriculum and stuff like that. So yeah, that is stuff that we will likely know, but feel free to tell us anyway. Cool. All right. So thank you for taking the time out of your weeknight to listen to us talk to you about how your application can stand out at Providence College. Mike and I are always willing to answer your questions throughout the fall and throughout application season. So feel free to get in touch with us or your admission counselors. But we just wanted to say thank you again and have a great rest of your night. And most importantly, go Friars. All right. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.